Welcome to the Speak to Lead podcast. Hi, Mel. It's great to have you on here, and I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with you about your experience, your journey around helping women go through motherhood. Touch on some subjects around emotional intelligence and why it's important to be able to understand what people are going through and to be able to recognize their needs and how we can provide them with what they need. Yeah, let's jump in and see how the conversation flows. So I would love to get started by, it would be great if you could introduce yourself and let anybody listening and watching know who you are, where you're from, and what you're currently doing.
Hi, I'm Mel. I'm a therapist trained in the UK. The past 2 years, I've been nomading. So I've always been someone that is caught between two things, the West and the East, the stable and the unpredictable. And so through all these experiences, I am now a huge advocate on connection and community. And I am building a community to help women to become better moms.
Nice. I love this subject because I think that connection is it is the thing that makes us human. It's the thing, especially now with like AI and these sort of
Yeah.
disjointed communities and ways of living. I think that connection's like the way to stay human. Why do you find it so important, and what have you noticed in therapy and coaching your clients, why it's so important?
Okay. Yeah. That's a good one. I totally agree with you about how AI is affecting how we connect and relate to each other. I think from a very human standpoint and with my therapeutic work, humans are designed, I think since we're born, we're designed to learn to be with ourselves, to know who we are, but also know who we are amongst others. So we're not designed to just do one or the other. So how to balance that is through connection with ourselves and with each other. We can't live in fantasy, just in our own world of how we think the world is. We need to check reality with other people, and that's where connection comes in. And without that, we don't really know who we are, whether what we think is true, how we see the world is true. So we have to keep checking with each other, and that's why we've got to have connection.
So seeing connection as like a feedback mechanism to
Mm,
to help navigate to help navigate what is real, I suppose. Is that like connecting with ourselves? It's really also really interesting, I think, that you said connecting with ourselves first and foremost, because a lot of the time when we talk about connection, I think people default to thinking how we connect to other people. Why is it
yeah.
so important that we connect to ourselves, and how can we kind of maintain that connection in this kind of disjointed world that we're in?
Mm, yeah. It's so hard to fight against the tide with capitalism, consumerism. It's all telling us to look outside to give away our power and ownership in order for us to be so tired and just what we do is we buy things online impulsively and get it 2 hours later. That's what makes us happy. And we're all pursuing this happiness while we don't really know what makes us happy or whether happiness is what we think it is. So when the world is engineered this way, we don't have the time and tools to really figure out and explore what we are made of, what is important to us. And
Yeah, because we keep looking outside of ourselves for answers that don't seem to be outside of ourselves, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that is why I think when we're not connected to ourselves and we don't know what our body is feeling, what we're trying to understand and validate for ourselves with each experience we have. We look outside to have other people validate us, to blame others for a certain thing that happens, to control what is happening outside of us, instead of using those as a way to look inside and really connect with what that means for me. Why did I react that way? And that is what makes me me. So when we look that lose that self trust and self connection, we're just kind of depending on others and the incidents in the world to tell us what our experience is.
What do you see as the some of the like problems that arise from relying solely on external
Mm.
feedback to guide us? What's the problem with that?
Ooh, oh, so much. Like, I think a common one amongst the 20s and 30s is not having self-esteem. So feeling like I can't go out and do anything because I don't even know what I like. I don't know what I'm good at. So I would just go with whatever is trendy.
Hmm.
Or in a relationship, I think for my generation, more so the 30s and 40s, um, I think not knowing what true relationship and connection and intimacy feels like, and not knowing how to get there, how to fight, how to repair, how to maintain a friendship, which is so important. And so we feel all this isolation. That is, I think, a consequence of not having any connection, not knowing how to.
So are you saying that the that feeling of isolation actually comes not so much from a lack of connections to people and things outside of ourselves, but actually because we lack some connection to ourselves?
Yes, for sure. For sure. I think whatever happens between me and you, one and the other is always just a reflection of what is going on inside.
Mm, yeah.
Like when we're trying so hard to control your partner, for example, which I do as well sometimes. I think it's when I feel like I'm losing control with whatever is happening with my inner world.
Okay, so you're actually when you feel like you're not in control, that's when you try and control your partner or external circumstances.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes. For example, when I feel like, oh my gosh, my work is not going well, I have no income for the next month. I have to start a YouTube channel, but I'm not doing it because I'm panicking. I don't know what I should be focusing on. Everyone else is doing this thing already. I don't know what to do with myself. I will go outside the door. I'll see my partner hang out there with the dishes left on the table, for example. And be like, how dare you? How dare you do all these while I am experiencing this? So I'm going to control you to make sure you make me happy. You make me feel like, okay, things are under control, which is not going to be helpful at all when they actually go to it.
That's so interesting you've just said that, because it's just it's just made me think of situations in my own life where I do the same thing, where and I hadn't actually thought about it so much in that way. I think I was probably starting to notice that I am externalizing the stuff that's going on within me, but I have the same thing where I'm working to build business and trying to do all of these different things. And I realized that I also do that where I go to my partner and I'm like, hey, you should be doing, you know, XYZ. You should be writing a book and you should be doing this.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, a big part of that is probably because I'm trying to avoid the challenges that I'm facing with and get my partner to instead like deal with the same challenges, but for herself as opposed to me. That's so interesting. I suppose that's probably a big pitfall for coaches, is it's easy to fall into that mindset of like, I'm going to help you deal with your stuff instead of having to deal with my stuff.
Yes.
Do you
Yeah.
have that? So
It's
in
so
your,
interesting.
yeah, yeah, in your work with, so let's go into your work with women? What is it that you're actually helping them with?
Yes. So I'm a therapist. I work with clients, right? And I've realized that most of how we see the world, how we love is from our childhood, our earlier experiences, right? So if we can just go back in time, and help parents become better parents, give them the tools they need, the knowledge, the preparation, then I feel like we can solve the problem from then onwards, going back to the root. So I I can't pretend I know the solution at the moment because I think it's very systemic. This there's sexism, there's a lot in there. Not sexism, sorry, patriarchy, and just a lot of structural ways of how women exist in our society and how mothers are being seen. And there's so much expectations and shame. I think what we can do right now is to hold a space. My way is to hold a space online, having a presence, having a community where we can have these conversations. How old should you get pregnant and what kind of stroller to buy, breastfeed or C-section or not? Like all these practical stuff. I think it is really such a journey for the women and for the dads as well, right? To really have this such human experience, to enjoy it, but also know how to ride the waves because it is so hard. It is very, very difficult. And we should be able to talk about this and have a community that witnesses your individual experience instead of being judged and just constantly performing.
That you're looking at how can we solve the problem as opposed to the symptom and going back and taking, okay, this, because, if you're focusing on parents, mothers, but mothers and fathers, the I suppose the time span of when that's going to solve the problem is extended, right? You're starting from right from the beginning, and so you have to kind of wait 18, 20 years to see whether, what the result of that is. But I love that approach of like, no, we're not going to just work on constantly patching people up have already been damaged, but instead look at how we can prevent the damage in the first place. So a lot of what you're talking about is really just creating that space, like creating a place where people can talk about their challenges and not feel judged. Is that
I think sorry, that's the general big picture. Of course, there's gonna be a lot of actual conversations and preparations and tools to help women and new parents to think about this whole journey, not just for the kids, but how to remain your own identity, right? One thing I've learned actually is that when baby is conceived. So, starting from the moment of pregnancy for both parents, but especially for moms, your brain structure is different. Your hormones, your whole body chemical balance is different. That means that you're actually a different person. It's not just that you feel different, right? You're a new person. And same with any other transitions in life, which is also a big topic I think is super important and kind of lost in our society. These transitional rituals are gone, and people are kind of just expected to get on with their life and know what they're doing, which they don't. And it's a process to learn and grow. And it should be treated that way. So I want a community where we have the conversations, we have what we need to grow together.
so? Seeing it as that transition and treating it. Do you
Yes.
treat it sort of more like a not a ritual as such, but just kind of with the gravitas and the importance that it deserves, as opposed to it just being okay, you're pregnant. Here's what you do: X, Y, Z.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a lot to learn about rituals, to be honest. Am I a millennial? Yes, I'm a late millennial. I have not really experience a lot of rituals, especially I think in Asian culture. We don't have time for that. We're busy working. So, I've grown up learning that you just get on with it, you know? You should just know, like, why so many questions? So I need to go, and I really wanna learn more about these ancient rituals.
Do you see, to that point, regarding Asian culture and just kind of getting on with it? It's kind of interesting that you say that, because I would have, from my naive perspective, I would have thought, oh, Asian cultures, they place a lot more importance on rituals and ceremony and all those sorts of things. So it's really interesting that you say that that's not the case.
Mm.
Do you notice that are there problems, specific problems or issues that have arisen, do you think, from a lack of ritual and ceremony and more that approach of like just get on and do it? Are there things that people are then ignoring that aren't being dealt with that are leading to some sort of trauma further down the line?
Because of the lack of rituals, you mean?
Yeah, because of that approach of why are you asking so many questions? You should just know what you need to do, get on and do it. That sort of attitude. Is that creating
Mhm.
some problems that you can see in Asian society or in Western society?
That is interesting. To me, the norm is that I don't know the ritual, but if I just zoom out a bit and look at the Western culture, I can also see actually it's not that bad, maybe. But I kept thinking about this idea of I don't know if you know this term. It's coined by a psychotherapist. I can't remember who. Ambiguous loss. It's that yes, in Asia the rituals are there. We have the cleansing ceremonies with water or with firecrackers, a lot of that ceremonial stuff, but it's become very surface level. There's no meaning to it. So the ambiguous loss is kind of talking about kind of us right now with AI, with the way we relate to each other. There's an ambiguous loss that we can't exactly say, look, this is what we are missing. You can't really just visualize it and package it into something neat to justify the loss. But you feel that, hey, how come we're sitting together watching TV, but we're together, but I feel the lack of intimacy. What is that? I can't really
You can't
put
place your
it
finger on it.
into, yeah. And so you can't make it a case. And I feel like maybe it's the same with rituals. Yes, we have all those holidays, national holidays and ceremonies, but that is not a time where we have conversations about our ancestors or how we miss our grandparents. No, there is no such thing. There is no understanding and sharing and a collective coming together, really. We're physically coming together less and less as well, but the inner world is not. So it's kind of become a shell of ritual, I
Yeah,
think.
I definitely see that as well. In Western culture, man, I don't have any experience with Asian culture, but certainly in the Western culture, I mean, that's things like marriage and these sort of the fundamental understanding of why we have these things. Why do you get married? Well, now the narrative is it's for tax reasons, or it's dominance, or it's XYZ, but people lose the deeper understanding of like what is marriage about, or it's about deciding for, I mean, this is just one example and I'm not an expert on it, but like just deciding that this is the person that we are here and we are going to tackle any problem that comes. It's not about, oh, this is a marriage of convenience. No, a marriage means no matter what happens, we're going to support each other to overcome those challenges, and we're here for our children. And I see a lot of like, that's maybe not the best example, but a lot of those, like you say, the rituals, the celebrations, the events that we have in culture are now just more of a shell, as you put it. We don't, we've lost sight of why they're there, and then it's easy to say, oh, it's not important. It's like actually a good example that I like is how we used to come together for dinner, for example, if you're in a family. Why is it so
Yeah.
important that people together and we make that space to come and share a meal together? Well, there are a lot of reasons around it, but one is, for example, that when you are full, like when you're not hungry, then you're in a much more stable position to be able to communicate with your family around what's going on. And so having that, creating that space for everybody to come, to relax, to leave outside distractions, to be in a good state physically where you're not stressed and you're not hungry, to then be able to interact with each other and to share what's going on for each other and to build that
Mm,
connection up again has kind of been lost. We don't do that
yeah.
so often now. So
Yeah. I love how you put that scene of a very sharing that nurturing experience together. Yeah.
it
I
yeah.
mm, I was thinking you bring up a very good example, marriage. Yeah, it's not only that we can't commit to it, it's a commitment, I think, based on what you're saying, right? We're gonna go through this together no matter what. But right now, I think for us as well, we don't know where we're committing ourselves to. In our parents' generation, it is we committed to going through 3 kids together, and we'll live our somewhat separate lives together for 50 years. That is what I commit to. And there's no famine, there's no political arrest. It's just raising kids together and building some wealth. That's what they're committed to. But I think for us and for our children, committing to a marriage might mean, um, I don't know, going through uh, some AI war on humans and losing all our jobs and having to be together for 200 years. What does that mean? Right? We don't know how to do that. I also think like it's pretty hard for our generation. I feel like we're kind of the bridge in between a very transformational era. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of the first generation to
mm,
break free of old traditions and try to kind of
yeah,
be completely different. Um,
yeah,
Julia, my fiance, she's an expert on those things, but it is
yeah.
there are definitely, like you say, unique challenges that are facing us. I'm curious when it comes to the because you've got kind of a foot in the Asian culture as well as a foot in Western culture. What are like some of the biggest differences that you see between the cultures, especially when it comes to communication, when it comes to connection that you see?
Mm. I'm going to draw my thoughts on my relationship because it is a cross-cultural one. And even though sometimes I forget that he is Western, he is. And when I notice there is such a big difference, the way we communicate, for example, he is way more direct. There is way more validation. That is a huge one. In my culture, there's no validation. We don't say, "Yeah? Huh, that sounds good." We don't do that. We're just like, "Okay, so what do you want? What do you mean? Don't do that."
Okay.
So,
So
it is very
he's validating you
he's
when you
validating me, but also he's used to when he shares something, I have to validate first instead of just going in with an advice or with my point of view, right? I am so not used to it. There's with communication, that's a big one. In terms of connection, um, I noticed that it's maybe somewhat similar. Whenever I open my mouth, he would put down whatever he is doing and turn around, look at me, and just offer the space. And I think that is very apparent when I was nomading as well. A lot of my friends, they're very willing to put everything down to just hold space to hang out and to have a conversation, even if it goes on till late. Well, for me, what I'm used to is, okay, there's a schedule. We have 2 hours to do this. Okay, let's talk about this within 5 minutes in between my break. Yeah,
So much more of
it's
like a
more,
to-do list as opposed to real being there for each other.
yeah, to just make yourself available is such a luxury. I think.
Because it's kind of interesting because I would have also again thought that that would have been more the other way around because Western culture and society is considered individualistic as opposed to Asian culture, which is typically considered more, um, you know, what's the right word, like collective, and to be,
Mhm.
more about the group's well-being over the individual. Do you see that in other areas of behavior or in other areas of the culture where Asian culture is much more about the group and not so much about the individuals who make up the group?
Yes, a lot as well. And that is what we were talking about before we started the boundary connection. I think because in an individualistic society, everyone is a unique unit, separate. There's boundaries. So they can also come together in that, in a more controlled way, right? They can be like, okay, I'll offer you this time. This is the time I can make myself available. The other times I'll go away and be with myself. I can claim my space. In a collectivist collectivism society, what I'm used to is we can't leave each other. When we're in the space together, we kind of have to always pay attention to what each other needs. There's no really rest self time. You're always on. So when people actually come to you, you're kind of preserving that energy, right? You're using 10%. You're doing your own thing, but you're also giving 10% of attention to them. So it's always together and it's always on. So it's also never on, never off.
Okay, so you don't have those kind of hard yes, no, on offs. It's just kind of always something there.
Yeah, I would distinguish it that way.
What's
You're
the
never fully.
sorry,
Hmm.
continue.
Just you're never really fully present, yet you're never fully gone as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what are some benefits to that way of doing things and what are some, I mean, it sounds like what you just said is it sounds quite tiring in a way, but are there any benefits to having that mindset, that collective mindset as opposed to individualistic?
Mhm, mhm. In my point of view, I'm talking about a codependent tendency in how we relate. So, although we use these two terms of individualism and collectivism, I think on a day-to-day level, we're talking about how codependent is our society. And in a Western society, there's still codependency. It's just covered by a more independent or sometimes toxic individualism kind of way of being. The benefits of being codependent is, I think, historically speaking, because we have the population is so big and we need to stick together and operate in a hierarchical way. So someone has to be in control and the others just follow and obey. That is just easier and more convenient. And that is why I've come to the conclusion that efficiency and connection just doesn't go together. You pick one or the other.
Okay.
So in a highly in a highly codependent function, efficiency is so important. It's about one or the other, right or wrong, the one and the other. But there is no understanding. There is no coming together and think together and share and taking turns. There's no time and energy for that. That's so there is no connection as well. And vice versa. When there's a lot of understanding, a lot of, okay, let's figure it out. What do you want? What do you think? Then it's very slow, not efficient. Um,
So just if I've understood that correctly, you're saying that a collective society is less efficient but more focused on efficiency, or have I misunderstood that?
I think it's very efficient.
Very efficient. Okay.
I think it's efficient. We come to a decision quickly because one person just makes that call, but there is not much connection going on.
I see. So because people aren't really checking in to see,
Mm.
what your needs are, it's just like, okay, I'm making the decision for the group.
Yes,
I see.
yes.
Okay.
It's very hierarchical.
Right. Which is so it's again, and this is my skewed perspective for understanding, where I think of like a collective society as being one that values, yeah, like one that values, I suppose when you say it values the group, that's exactly what they're doing. But if you value the group, then you don't value the individual, which is kind of a strange
Mm.
dichotomy to be in, because the individual is what makes up the group.
Yes, yes. Yeah, what is the group?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, the smallest group is the individual. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when you're working with women in your whether you're working in your therapy role or in this new endeavor with helping women through motherhood, what kind of approaches are you taking? Are you taking more of that kind of collective approach, or are you focused more on the individual way of doing things and thinking?
Yeah, I love this question. I think for the past almost decade of me working in mental health, I love the mental health side. I love wearing the therapist hat. I also love the business side. And in mental health, as you would know as well, there's a lot of angles to tackling self-empowerment, right? Self-growth. There are there's one example. Some people likes holding like lectures and seminars and workshops. I personally really don't like it. I really don't like the top-down and one directional way of growing and learning. Like, I like to describe it like this, which is a bit graphic, but it's like everyone come together around the table, everyone vomit out whatever's inside, and then we all mix it up or sort it out, and then we eat a packet. See it. Yeah.
Gruesome image.
Yeah, but I think it has to be that way. You have to give in order to get, right? Um, yeah. So the way I work with mom and women's as well, I think it really is about letting something you touched on earlier is it's about redefining what it means for you. There is there's no standards anymore, especially the world we live in with AI. We don't even know what it means to really be a good human, or do we even need to be good, right?
Is good.
So exactly. So it is just about living your best life, however you define it. And I want to be able to give that ownership, to cultivate that ownership together, to really empower that person to explore and define whatever that means for them.
So you're basically you're empowering the individual through connection to the group, through connection to the individuals that make up that group. That idea,
Hmm.
that graphic idea that you gave, that everybody vomits onto the
Yeah.
table. Everybody contributes. And then
Yes.
you take out of that experience exactly what you need as an individual, like your
Mm.
customized solution, I suppose, your customized meal from that, from that. It's a terrible. I'm not going to forget that. I mean, it's memorable. It's definitely memorable. But yeah, you take.
What if we put it as, cats? They puke out the fur ball and we all knit it into a,
It's
a
not any
scarf.
better, Mel.
Okay.
I mean,
I try.
I think if you want something that's memorable that people are really gonna, visualize in their head, you've nailed it.
Yeah.
So I think that's good. I think
Yes.
yeah, excellent.
Okay. You can steal it if you want.
Oh God, what a lovely experience. Yeah, okay. So, but your approach, your preferred approach is more, I suppose, more that mastermind approach where everybody's working with each other to figure out what
Mm,
each other needs.
yeah. Um, there is that makes me think about like the myth as well that a lot of people ask why therapy works. Even the top therapists don't have answers to that. They can guess and they can assume, oh, it's because I said something super wise, but most of the time it's not. And we really don't know. So I don't think there's any one person or a few leaders that can come in and be like, let me tell you how to do this, right? We have to be able to learn and compare and do that, sorry, vomiting and taking back, redigesting kind of process in order to really explore and integrate, reintegrate, and build up who we are.
I think it also reminds me of something I wrote or I read recently, which was we all have the answers within us. We just need to ask the right
Mhm.
questions. And I
Mm,
think that a big part of what you're talking about, that sharing of different perspectives, different ideas, is the process by which people start to ask themselves different questions, questions that they hadn't considered. And you have when you have that interaction, I think this is why also connection is so important, is when you interact with somebody else, you start to ask yourself questions that you haven't asked yourself in the past. You're prompted to think of
mhm.
things, and when you ask yourself those questions, that's when the answers start to come from within you. It's not about asking somebody else a question and receiving an answer from them. It's about being prompted to ask yourself a question and to generate the solution or the answer to that question from within yourself as opposed to externally. So,
Yes. Yeah, the moment you ask the question is the moment of self-awareness.
mm, yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so, just before we wrap up, the approach that you're using now, what's the plan with the what do you call it when you're helping these mothers uh through motherhood? Is it coaching? Is it like a
Oh.
mastermind? What do you define that as?
Oh, okay. I just define it as holding space
Holding
for now
space.
until I figure out a better solution. Right now, I am just doing podcasts, interviewing all kinds of moms to share the realities and stories about motherhood. It's not just all like, cute babies and amazing holiday trips. It's not like that at all most of the time. So I want to really showcase that true stories and through online presence to build that conversational space to talk about, discuss these things.
Beautiful. And what's the dream? What is it that you're aiming at with that? What would you love for it to develop into?
The midterm. So I've had an online brand, social media brand for 6 years now. And then I built my own personal one. And I would when I was nomading and when I was in Taiwan as well. It's not huge, but even so, almost every time I go out, someone will come up to me and tell me about the content I made, which is very shocking to me. And I hope that midterm, midway goal is I would run into people that tells me about these things and how it changes their parenthood and their child. I In the long, long term, I hope that we can see a generation of kids are learning and growing because they're watching their parents flourish as well. Kids are being parented not from words, but from looking at their parents and really seeing that role model. That is my dream.
It's a beautiful dream. I think, yeah, what a wonderful goal and outcome to set yourself. Well, thank you, Mel, so much
Yeah.
for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Is there
It's an
anything
honor.
else before we wrap up? Is there anything else you wanted to share with anybody watching or listening?
Mm.
Anything we haven't covered yet that you were hoping we'd cover?
No, no, very happy.
Excellent. Well, then we'll wrap it up there. For our watchers and listeners, please subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more interviews and wisdom from people like Mel. And if you're wanting to learn to speak and to deliver your thoughts and your ideas on podcasts like this, then check out the other content on the channel and check out Oracy Club School. There'll be links to that in the description below. All right. Thank you so much, Mel. It's been a pleasure.
Usual. It's a great conversation.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.